Tonight is Tuesday. The air in the kitchen is thick, scented by routine and familiarity, and the sound of the key turning in the lock is precisely the same sound it has made for the last 7 years. This is the sound of arrival, but for the man who has just entered, it is also the sound of containment. He hangs his jacket, kisses his wife, and absorbs the immediate, palpable weight of obligation that defines the domestic sphere. The calendar on the refrigerator door, brightly annotated with grocery lists, appointments, and mandatory family functions, is not merely a schedule. It is the physical manifestation of his strategic limitations. It is his fortress, but more accurately, it is his meticulously charted prison cell. This man, the dedicated husband, the stable provider, the predictable fixture, lives a life defined by presence. His schedule is an open book, his availability is guaranteed, and his movements are largely known days, weeks, and even months in advance. He is a stable political entity, and stability, as Niccolò Machiavelli taught us, often translates directly into strategic vulnerability. Predictability is an invitation for others to plan around you, to assume your presence, and to allocate your time without your explicit, genuine consent. Now, consider the counterpoint to this domestic prince, the friend. The husband often finds his thoughts drifting to this friend, especially around Friday afternoons. The friend is a ghost in the calendar machine, an enigma whose availability is never guaranteed, whose schedule is a void, and whose movements are determined by pure, unconstrained preference. It is the friend who embodies the ultimate, forbidden freedom that the husband, constrained by affection and responsibility, has unconsciously surrendered. Why does every husband dream of his friend's empty calendar? Because that empty calendar is not merely a lack of plans, it is the ultimate symbol of unfettered strategic autonomy. It is the raw, intoxicating political power of non-commitment. We are about to dissect the psychology of accountability and desire, a fundamental struggle that plays out in bedrooms and kitchens across the modern world, a silent war of constraints versus capabilities. Before we proceed into the architecture of this silent power struggle, tell me the city where you are currently analyzing this truth. What specific context defines your current battlefield? The husband is a prince who has chosen the affection of his people, his family, over the fear that comes with unpredictability. Machiavelli famously advised that it is safer to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both, primarily because love is volatile, subject to obligation, and easily dissolved when necessity vanishes. Fear, however, is maintained by the dread of consequence, a far more durable emotional chain. The husband's dilemma is precisely this Machiavellian trap. He has built his life on love, which necessitates predictable presence and guaranteed availability. He cannot suddenly become unavailable without causing political disruption, anger, disappointment, or worse, suspicion. His calendar is full because he has chosen the path of compliance and affection. His friend, meanwhile, operates on an entirely different power gradient. The friend's empty calendar implies that his time is a resource of immense scarcity. He is the prince who has successfully maintained the perception of constant movement, ceaseless options, and total non-reliance on routine. He is unattached to the immediate necessity of answering. He can choose to engage, or more powerfully, he can choose not to engage. And this fundamental ability to choose, to be the master of his own presence, is the true engine of the husband's envy. In Machiavelli's world, a ruler's strength is often measured by the perception of his resources and his ability to deploy them instantaneously and unexpectedly. The husband has already deployed his most valuable resource, his time, to a fixed, domesticated entity. He is fully invested, entirely visible, and therefore, entirely managed. The friend, however, has kept his time in reserve. His flexibility is his force multiplier. If the husband requires a sudden evening of escape, a rapid deployment of relief from domestic fortuna, he must negotiate, justify, and navigate layers of pre-existing commitments. The friend merely needs to decide. The friend's calendar is empty, not necessarily because he is doing nothing, but because he has mastered the art of non-documentation. He refuses to submit his life to the tyrannical clarity of shared scheduling. The psychological toll of the full calendar is the slow erosion of personal virtue, that distinct Machiavellian prowess defined by adaptability, energy, and decisive action. Every planned event, every committed evening, Every designated obligation chips away at the man's reservoir of unexpected energy. He becomes reactive rather than proactive. He fulfills the schedule rather than dictating it. He is predictable in his reactions because his movements are predictable in time and space. The friend, in stark contrast, is the wild card. He is the external actor who can appear suddenly, propose radical, spontaneous action, and disappear without consequence or required apology. He represents the possibility of action unbound by accountability, and it is this sheer, unadulterated potentiality that the husband covets above all material wealth. The dream is not merely to drink a beer or watch a game. The dream is the sensation of absolute, unburdened choice. It is the political fantasy of being a sovereign whose decrees are immediate and final, unbound by constitutional checks. Machiavelli would view the husband's situation as a strategic failure of boundary setting. By initially granting total access and total predictability, the husband created an expectation of compliance. He built a beautiful fortress, his marriage and domestic life, but failed to install the necessary strategic opacity required to maintain his individual sovereignty within that fortress. A wise prince ensures that even his closest advisors do not know his every thought or future movement. The husband, through the sheer clarity of his full calendar, has made himself utterly transparent. The friend, however, is a master of strategic ambiguity. His lack of commitment is a powerful political tool that forces others to pursue him, to manage their schedules around his potential availability, and to elevate his time as inherently more valuable precisely because it is scarce. The friend is never waiting for an invitation. He is issuing conditional possibilities. He teaches everyone around him that he is a luxury, not a staple. This dynamic creates a profound dissonance in the husband's mind. He sees the external evidence of his friend's success, the perpetual freedom, the spontaneous movement, the ability to operate outside the predictable orbit, and he attributes it, incorrectly, to luck or nature. Machiavelli knew better. Freedom is not luck. It is a meticulously managed strategic state. The friend maintains his empty calendar not by accident, but by consistently upholding the principle of maximum personal options, refusing to commit his future resources today unless absolutely necessary. The husband is trapped by the appearance of necessity. He believes he must attend, he must participate, he must be present, because his virtue is now defined by his reliability. But this reliability has become a leash. Every time he checks that full calendar, he is reminded that his capacity for immediate self-serving action is zero. His movements require bureaucratic approval, emotional negotiation, and strategic realignment of other commitments. This complex bureaucracy is the antithesis of power. Power in its purest form is the ability to make a decision and execute it instantly, without external approval. The friend has this power. The husband does not. Furthermore, the full calendar renders the husband politically weak in his external relationships. When the friend proposes a spontaneous trip or an unexpected venture, the husband must immediately respond with an exhaustive, often embarrassing recitation of his domestic constraints. He has to confess through his schedule that he is not a fully sovereign agent. He must detail the meetings, the child pickups, the necessary repairs, the mundane, predictable duties that negate his freedom. This is the moment of maximum strategic humiliation, the moment a man must list his obligations to justify his lack of power. The friend, by merely having to state, "Let me check my non-existent schedule," retains his leverage and his aura of potent, unconstrained possibility. The core envy, therefore, is rooted in the perceived control over fortuna. The husband feels like a victim of circumstance, his days predetermined by external forces, his wife, his children, his boss. The friend, by keeping his calendar empty, maintains the illusion that he is the master of his own fate, that he operates purely by virtu, bending circumstance to his will. Even if the friend is actually sitting at home playing video games, the fact that he could be doing anything else anywhere else sustains his powerful reputation for sovereignty. The husband's deep-seated desire is to reclaim that political status, to be a man whose next move is unknown, whose time is valuable because it is scarce, and whose presence is a gift, not an expectation. He dreams of his friend's empty calendar because that calendar represents the political power of being missed, the strategic advantage of being absent, and the profound strength found in choosing silence over constant availability. This realization is the painful truth many recognize but refuse to articulate. We understand this silence, the quiet resentment toward the chains of commitment. Share the one phrase that summarizes the weight of that empty calendar dream, the ultimate fantasy of strategic escape. Post that sentence right now. You are part of a community that dissects power at its deepest, most uncompromising level. Confirm your commitment to strategic insight by subscribing immediately and liking this analysis. We are about to move from aspiration to application, revealing how the friend manages to preserve this immense power of non-commitment. Prepare yourself. Next, we dissect the dark strategy the friend uses to maintain his freedom, and how he weaponizes uncertainty to ensure his calendar stays blank. The moment you understand the currency of non-commitment, the definition of freedom shifts entirely. We talk about strength, about confrontation, about winning wars in the office or the gym. But Niccolo Machiavelli understood that the greatest battleground for the modern man is often fought not against an enemy, but against the clock. It is a silent war against the tyranny of the calendar, a calendar filled with commitments, expectations, and obligations, all shackling a man to predictability. And predictability, in the eyes of the strategist, is the ultimate vulnerability. Machiavelli viewed a ruler's time not as a commodity, but as strategic capital. Every minute spent on trivialities, every hour dedicated to unnecessary social functions, every weekend lost to non-essential commitments, was a minute stolen from the state, a drain on the strategic reserve. The modern man, the modern husband, is often the prince of his own small domain, and yet he voluntarily subjects himself to self-imposed siege. He allows his calendar to become his cage. Before we dissect the true price of that loaded calendar and explore why strategic silence must be matched by strategic availability, tell me this. Where are you experiencing this pressure? Where in the world is your strategic mind absorbing these lessons right now? We are creating a global network of strategists, and I want to know where the power is congregating. Share your city in the comments below. The core dream, why every husband dreams of his friend's empty calendar, is a profound Machiavellian insight into the nature of freedom and obligation. It is not envy of leisure. It is envy of optionality. The man whose calendar is perpetually empty possesses the ultimate strategic advantage. He is unbound. He can pivot. He can react instantly to fortune. He can seize opportunities that the predictable, locked-down man simply misses because he is obligated to be somewhere else, doing something mundane. The filled calendar is the ultimate advertisement of control by others. It signals that you are an asset to be managed, a resource to be allocated rather than a force to be reckoned with. The man who must check his phone before agreeing to a spontaneous strategic meeting, the man who must consult his wife or his planner before accepting a high-stakes, last-minute opportunity, has already forfeited the advantage. He has allowed external forces to dictate his availability, and Machiavelli instructs us that true power resides in the ability to dictate terms, not to accept them. This brings us to the subtle poison of alliances, particularly friendships. While Part 1 focused on avoiding aggression, Part 2 delves into avoiding unnecessary allegiance. Machiavelli warned the prince against relying on the goodwill or love of others, because love is fickle and easily broken. Friendship, while superficially pleasant, is a voluntary burden. It is an emotional and temporal tax. When a husband looks at his friend's empty calendar, he is seeing a man free from the demand for that tax. Friendship requires investment, time, emotional labor, and mutual obligation. A friend with a full calendar means the husband must also dedicate time to maintaining that relationship, a commitment that yields emotional rather than strategic returns. If the friend's calendar is empty, there is no pressing need for joint activities, no expectation of scheduled socializing, no debt of time that must be repaid. This absence of obligation is the silent power the husband yearns for. A strategic mind understands that emotional bandwidth is finite. Every unit of mental energy spent planning a social obligation, navigating a friend's emotional crisis, or managing the politics of a social circle is a unit of energy not spent on securing the state, building the business, or advancing personal objectives. Machiavelli advised the prince to avoid flattery, but he equally advised avoiding distractions. A full social schedule is the ultimate distraction, disguised as necessary networking. The tyranny of commitment extends deeply into the domestic sphere, where the husband's life, far from being the domain of the prince, often becomes that of the highly managed administrator. The marriage itself, while providing stability, is a colossal strategic constraint. It locks down not only time but also capital, reputation, and maneuverability. The husband is bound by two invisible shackles: predictability and visibility. Consider visibility. Every action, every expenditure, every late night is visible, accounted for, and often scrutinized. His reputation is inextricably linked to the reputation of his household and his spouse. This linkage is a strategic vulnerability. If he needs to make a bold, risky, or unconventional move, a Machiavellian necessity for greatness, he must first achieve consensus, or worse, operate in secret. The empty calendar dream is the dream of strategic solitude, where decisions can be made swiftly and unilaterally, without the administrative overhead of domestic consultation. The full calendar, in the modern Machiavellian context, represents the total loss of initiative. It is a state where the man is constantly reacting to pre-existing appointments and fulfilling promises made weeks or months ago, often when his strategic priorities were entirely different. He is trapped in the past's decision-making framework. Machiavelli had a strong view on fortune, the unpredictable, tumultuous river of events that a prince must be ready to master. He argued that it is better to be audacious than cautious, because fortune favors the bold. But how can a man be audacious if he must first check if he has an appointment for carpooling, or if he must attend a mandatory, non-strategic social event? Fortune does not wait for the calendar to clear. It strikes, and those who are strategically available seize it. The man whose calendar is empty is constantly ready to ride the wave of fortune. The man whose calendar is full drowns under the weight of his own commitments. This concept of strategic optionality is essential for long-term influence. Influence is built on scarcity. When a man is constantly available, constantly compliant, constantly slotted into predefined roles, his value decreases. He becomes reliable, yes, but also common. The power of the empty calendar lies in its ability to generate scarcity. The strategist who is rarely available, whose time must be earned, instantly raises his perceived value. When he finally agrees to a commitment, that commitment carries weight. The friend with the empty calendar represents the husband's lost potential, the strategic space that has been filled by obligation. The husband sees his own life as a series of forced choices, while his friend appears to live in a state of perpetually uncommitted potential. This appearance of uncommitted potential is a form of passive power. It makes the man seem potent, ready to deploy his resources, time, skill, focus, immediately toward the highest strategic return. Let us dissect the psychological cost of the administrative burden. Modern life, particularly domestic life, is governed by bureaucratic detail. Bills, appointments, scheduling, logistics, and maintenance. These tasks, while necessary, are strategically sterile. They consume mental RAM without producing leverage. A prince should delegate or eliminate non-strategic tasks to preserve his mind for high-level calculation. The filled calendar is a monument to administrative burden, a distraction from the true work of power acquisition. The husband who is perpetually tied down, perpetually managed by his schedule, eventually loses the habit of strategic thinking. He stops asking, "What is the best possible use of this time to maximize my power?" and starts asking, "What obligation must I meet next to avoid conflict?" This shift from proactive strategic thought to reactive obligation management is the slow death of ambition. Machiavelli understood that reputation, while important, should be focused on capability and competence, not on agreeableness or social popularity. The tough guy in Part 1 sought reputation through intimidation. The socially obligated man in Part 2 seeks reputation through reliability and pleasantness. Both are flawed. The man who is too reliable, who is always available for favors and social functions, becomes a utility, not a threat. People use him. They do not respect him strategically. The true strategist cultivates a reputation for being selectively available. His time is a precious, guarded resource. He is known not for his volume of commitments, but for the weight of his contributions. If he cancels an event, people understand it is not due to carelessness, but due to a high-priority strategic imperative that takes precedence. This is the difference between being liked and being valued. The full calendar makes you liked. The empty calendar, selectively deployed, makes you valuable. This avoidance of unnecessary commitment is rooted in Machiavelli's principle of conserving strength. Never exhaust your resources, especially time and goodwill, on endeavors that do not directly advance your primary objective. Every non-essential trip, every drawn-out social gathering, every hour spent managing low-stakes emotional conflicts is a depletion of the reservoir. The empty calendar preserves that strength, keeping the strategic resource ready for the moment the great opportunity presents itself. Consider the role of alliances in Machiavelli's world. A prince must choose his allies based on utility and necessity, not affection. The husband's friendships, particularly those inherited through social proximity or familial obligation, are often non-strategic. They are relationships of convenience that demand sacrifice of time for zero political or economic gain. Dreaming of the friend's empty calendar is dreaming of a world free from these non-essential, strategically neutral debts. The danger of a full schedule is that it forces superficiality. A man trapped by a relentless calendar can only engage briefly and superficially with many things, rather than deeply and strategically with a few important things. This lack of deep engagement prevents the attainment of mastery. Machiavelli recognized that a prince must master the art of war and governance. Mastery requires uninterrupted deep focus, the exact opposite of the fragmented attention necessitated by a hyper-scheduled life. The constant rush, the continuous adherence to the schedule, also breeds mental exhaustion, which is the enemy of sharp calculation. Strategic error is often the result of fatigue, not stupidity. The man who is perpetually running from one commitment to the next is a man running on depleted reserves. He makes rash judgments, overlooks critical details, and lacks the necessary calmness for high-stakes decision-making. The empty calendar is a promise of mental clarity, a fortress protecting the mind from the siege of minor details. In essence, the husband's dream is the realization that the ability to say no is the ultimate expression of power. Saying no to a social obligation, saying no to an administrative chore, saying no to a time-wasting alliance is saying yes to strategic freedom. It is declaring that your time is worth more than the obligation demands. But this power must be exercised quietly and strategically. It is not about rude rejection, but about cultivated unavailability. The wise man makes his non-availability a legendary affair. He is not available because he is engaged in securing greater objectives. The fool is unavailable because he is overcommitted to trivialities. The dream of the empty calendar is the dream of becoming the former, the man whose silence and absence are interpreted not as laziness, but as deep, profound strategic engagement that transcends the mundane. This realization leads us back to the core lesson. The true strategist is defined by what he refuses to do. He refuses to be predictable. He refuses to be easily accessed. He refuses to dissipate his strategic capital. He understands that while people judge by appearances, the appearance of being too busy or too scheduled often disguises an essential strategic bankruptcy, a total lack of optionality. We are not advocating for reckless isolation or the complete abandonment of responsibility. That would be foolish. We are advocating for the strategic optimization of time and commitment, viewing every agreement through the lens of leverage. Every meeting, every phone call, every social obligation must be scrutinized. Does this advance my strategic position or merely consume my time? If the answer is consumption without advancement, the commitment is a strategic liability. The man who adopts this Machiavellian perspective stops lamenting his busy schedule and starts engineering his freedom. He sees the calendar not as a passive recipient of appointments, but as a strategic tool to generate scarcity and focus. His goal is not the total absence of commitments, but the total elimination of non-strategic commitments. He clears the fog of obligation to see the battlefield clearly. This strategic clearing of the calendar is the necessary foundation for the final step in the acquisition of power, which we will explore next. It is the groundwork for making the difficult choices that determine whether a man remains a subject of circumstance or becomes the master of his own destiny. We have established that the greatest power lies in strategic silence, and that the greatest freedom lies in strategic optionality. Now, cement this truth in your mind. Every person striving for genuine strategic freedom must be willing to sacrifice the comfort of superficial social acceptance. We are choosing power over popularity. The phrase that signifies this choice, the ultimate Machiavellian declaration of autonomy, is this: My time is strategic capital. I require you to type that exact phrase in the comments below. Join the ranks of those who understand the value of an empty calendar. You are building your strategic intelligence, and the information we provide is rare and indispensable. Therefore, you must take immediate action and subscribe to this channel and like this video. It is a necessary step to secure your continued access to the strategic blueprint of power. Next, we delve into the ultimate Machiavellian calculation. We examine the moment the strategist must finally choose between his deepest desire and his greatest security. The final lesson reveals the one price that even the most calculated man must be willing to pay to secure his enduring influence. It is the final, most painful paradox of power. Do not miss it. The moment arrives not with a shout, but with a quiet, sickening clarity. It is the moment every husband, deep in the calculus of self-preservation, realizes the strategic position of his friend is not one of alliance, but one of inherent, structural risk. He sees the calendar, filled not just with the friend's commitments, but with the invisible implied commitments the friend's life imposes upon his own. This realization is the cold, final lesson of statecraft applied to domestic life. It is the understanding that the greatest threats to personal sovereignty rarely come from known enemies. They come from over-leveraged, highly available, and deeply entangled allies. That friend, the man who is always there, always ready to help, always weaving himself into the fabric of your life. He is not a safety net. He is a tripwire. Machiavelli would look at this situation and understand immediately. He was not talking about hate when he discussed managing relationships. He was talking about stability. The state, the prince, the husband, all share the same objective: minimize variables, control the environment, and eliminate vectors of attack. When that friend's calendar is empty, when his life is pliable, when he is perpetually available, he becomes a massive, unpredictable variable. Why? Because the available man is rarely available by choice. He is often available because his own life lacks sufficient structure, commitment, or success to fill his time. His lack of boundary becomes a threat to your boundary. If this cold truth resonates with the strategic reality you navigate every day, I want you to take a moment and let me know the city you're watching from. Because the principles of power, influence, and security are universal, whether you are managing an empire or simply managing a home. The danger of the perpetually available friend crystallizes into the problem of the moral mortgage. Every favor accepted, every late-night call answered, every shared secret creates a debt of gratitude. But this debt is unlike a financial loan. It is never paid off in currency. It is paid off in future obligation, in compromised impartiality, and in the gradual erosion of your right to say no. The empty calendar means the friend has excess capacity, and that excess capacity will inevitably seek utilization in your life. He will need a co-signer, a reference, an emotional sounding board for a prolonged crisis, or worst of all, an accomplice in a situation you never intended to join. The husband's dream of the empty calendar is a prayer for strategic non-involvement. It is the recognition that the stability of the inner circle, the marriage, the financial fortress, the shared reputation, is inversely proportional to the degree of entanglement with high-risk external parties. The friend who has nothing to lose is the most dangerous person in your orbit, because when his inevitable collapse occurs, he will pull on every thread connected to him, and because he was always available, he is connected by 1,000 fragile, invisible threads to your stability. Consider the Machiavellian rule regarding auxiliaries. Never rely on the troops of another, for they bring their own loyalties and their own agendas. The friend, when he is too available, becomes an auxiliary force within your domestic state. He offers his aid, his time, his influence, but this comes with an unstated mandate. When he experiences his own defeat, he expects your resources, your counsel, and your wife's empathy to be deployed entirely in his service, sometimes even against the interests of your own state. The husband, watching the friend's life unravel, realizes with terror that his own life is now collateral in the friend's war. The climax of this realization occurs during the inevitable moment of friction between the wife and the friend. This is the ultimate crucible. The wife, representing the stability of the domestic state, eventually views the over-leveraged friend as a clear and present danger to that stability. His problems consume too much time, his advice contradicts the shared vision, or most brutally, His presence provides an avenue for escape or critique that undermines the necessary sovereignty of the marriage. At this point, the husband is faced with the ultimate Machiavellian choice: utility versus sentiment. Which relationship is more fundamental to the preservation of the state? The friend, for all his loyalty, is replaceable. The domestic structure, the shared life, the partnership, that is the throne itself. To prioritize the friend's feelings or needs over the wife's increasing anxiety or demand for boundary is to invite civil war. The husband, dreaming of the friend's empty calendar, is dreaming of the friend achieving self-sufficiency and strategic distance. He doesn't wish the friend ill, he wishes the friend success and boundary. He wants the friend to acquire his own commitments, his own dense calendar, his own structure so rigid that there is no space left for casual, dangerous interference. This is the highest form of strategic friendship, non-interference. True friends should be allies of the spirit, not liabilities of the ledger. Machiavelli teaches that a ruler must avoid being hated, but more importantly, he must avoid being held in contempt. The friend who is always available risks contempt because his constant neediness or lack of direction signals low status and high volatility. His empty calendar is a billboard advertising that he is ready to take up space in a life that already has its own gravity and structure. The husband's secret wish is simply the desire to manage his state without the constant threat of unpredictable foreign entanglement. The conclusion is inescapable. Dependence is vulnerability. When you allow a friend to become indispensable, you are giving him a veto over your life choices. When the friend is constantly present, constantly involved, he accrues knowledge and leverage. He knows the weak points in the marriage, the financial pressures, the personal doubts. This knowledge, when possessed by an emotionally unstable or unpredictable person, the very definition of the chronically available individual, is a threat level red. The ultimate Machiavellian tactic is preemptive defense. The husband who dreams of the empty calendar is engaging in mental prophylaxis. He is preparing for the unavoidable crisis by wishing the source of potential chaos far away. It is not malice. It is superior foresight. It is understanding that one must never entrust one's fate entirely to the discretion of others. The final act of sovereignty, therefore, is the drawing of the unassailable line. It is the cold decision, when the moment of truth arrives, to prioritize the structural integrity of the marriage above all sentiment. The friend is cut loose not because he is unloved, but because the calculus of state preservation demands the immediate removal of all non-essential and high-risk variables. This is the bitter pill. In the political arena of personal life, sometimes the most loyal servant must be sacrificed to secure the sovereign's throne. This is the hidden cost of the friend's over-availability. His perceived generosity masks a deep strategic poverty, the inability to create a self-sufficient life that honors boundaries. And the husband's dream is the recognition of this poverty. He understands that the friend who fills his time with your needs is a friend who is failing to fill his time with his own destiny. And failure, Machiavelli warns us, is highly contagious. The strategic mind knows that influence is maintained by scarcity, not abundance. The friend who is everywhere becomes valued nowhere. The husband, by contrast, seeks to remain scarce, busy, and focused on his own structural strength. His time is a precious commodity, deployed strategically to fortify his own life. The friend's time, being cheap and abundant, is a liability waiting for deployment. The deepest, most unsettling wisdom Machiavelli offers here is that the preservation of your domestic state, your security, your reputation, your finances is the ultimate moral imperative. All other relationships, including friendship, must be subordinated to this core mandate. The husband's dream is therefore not cruel. It is pragmatic. It is the dream of a ruler who demands peace and order within his own borders, and who recognizes that external chaos, no matter how well-intentioned, must be kept at bay. The truth is, genuine respect is not earned by emotional availability. It is earned by strategic competence and controlled scarcity. When the friend finally fills his own calendar, when he builds his own structure, when he becomes indispensable within his own orbit, he will finally achieve the strategic distance that benefits both parties. His calendar will be full of his own success, not empty waiting for your crisis. And that, Machiavelli concludes, is the only true foundation for a sustainable and strategically sound friendship. This knowledge, this understanding that our personal security is a statecraft exercise, is power. We are not talking about malice. We are talking about minimizing vectors of failure. If this discussion has forced you to calculate the strategic risks in your own relationships, then you have internalized a fundamental law of power. Now I want you to crystallize this realization. In the comments below, declare the phrase that solidifies this principle for you. Write this: "My stability is my sovereignty." Let this be a marker that you understand the highest duty is to the integrity of your own state. Acknowledge this strategic truth. Hit the like button immediately and affirm your commitment to building strength through structure, not through display. And to ensure you never miss the next deep dive into the unspoken rules of influence and the hidden calculations of successful men, join the few who understand real power. Subscribe now. We are building a library of strategic competence, and your consistent presence here ensures you are armed with the cold truths necessary for leadership. We have explored why the husband needs strategic distance, but the next question is perhaps even more vital. We are going to expose the most common strategic error made by men who think they are succeeding. Prepare yourself for the ultimate revelation on the use of personal resources. There are secrets to power that only the most calculating minds grasp, and we are going to unpack the terrifying wisdom of the ancient strategists, revealing the hidden cost of the most prized possession we pursue. You need to understand this lesson before you make an irreversible mistake. Do not risk missing the next crucial transmission. Secure your position, and we will see you in the next analysis.